Well, hello everyone. Thanks again for joining another session. We're having the housing and legal session now. I've got Johnathon Dyer here with us today. Johnathon comes from the Salvation Army in Queensland, and he'll be talking about his specialty, which is homelessness. Over to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Louise. I will just share my screen. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about housing and veteran homelessness. I thought I'd start from the very bottom, explaining what homelessness can look like for those that are unsure or unaware. And then I'll work my way up from there into veteran homelessness and into what we do. So I'm the team leader of the veteran support team at the Salvation Army in Queensland. So what does homelessness look like? So there's really three types of homelessness. The one we mainly think about when the word homelessness is presented to us is primary homelessness. So that's people who are sleeping on the streets or sleeping rough, sleeping in parks, in abandoned buildings, or in a car. So there's also secondary homelessness, which is also referred to as hidden homelessness. So that's those people who may be in temporary shelters, such as like emergency accommodation places, or what's commonly known as couch surfing. So that may be staying with friends and family on a temporary basis. There's also a third type of homelessness called tertiary homelessness, and that's for those people living in a boarding room. So sometimes they will have less rights as someone who, say, may be renting a house or a unit through real estate. A boarding room has less stability in the lease. So veteran homelessness, the numbers. So 5,767. And what this means for veteran homelessness. So basically that number came from a report put out by the Australian Housing and Urban Research Institute, or AHURI, in 2019. This was basically the first large research project into veteran homelessness in Australia. Of course, there's been plenty of research done in places like the US, the UK, and Canada. But as far as Australian-based research goes, this was really the first large-scale one. So even in that research, there was a few limitations, I guess, and that was just based on the data sets that were available to the researchers at the time. So basically, they could only do research on those discharged after 2001, which, as you can imagine, leaves out a whole bunch of veterans out there. So that 5,767 number was a number that was based on that research and then extrapolated to produce that final number. That all being said, there have been a number of research projects on a smaller scale, including ones that have come up with similar numbers, if not exactly the same percentages of veterans that experience homelessness. So some findings from the AHURI report. So the AHURI report worked on the 12-month homelessness rate for recently transitioned veterans. So as you can see on that slide there, that's 5.3% of all recently transitioned veterans experience homelessness within a 12-month period. The general population rate is 1.9%. So that is quite a large disparity there. So about half of homeless veterans could be considered transitionally homeless, which means for less than 3 months. A quarter could be considered to be homeless for a significant period of time, which obviously means between 3 months and usually about 9 months. And another quarter could be considered chronically homeless. And of course, that can go anywhere from that 9-month period up to years and years. So one of the major findings from the Ahuri report is that only 39% of recently transitioned ADF members who reported experiencing homelessness had sought assistance from mainstream service or organisations, and that there were a number of barriers to access. And also those who actually did reach out and seek that help reported high rates of dissatisfaction with the services provided. So, veteran homelessness, the causes. So there's been quite a number of studies, especially in the overseas realm, to do with veteran homelessness and how that differs from people in the general population who experience homelessness. So as you can see there's, I guess your average reasons. So people becoming unemployed, experiencing relationship breakdown, experiencing financial strain, having mental health issues, less contact with family and friends, and all of those kind of things. But then there's also veteran-specific risk factors and causes that increase the odds of veterans becoming homeless. And that's basically a lot of reasons around their mental health. So higher PTSD symptoms, psychological distress symptoms, higher alcohol consumption, anger levels. But interestingly enough, also their service-related factors too, including operational deployment, being discharged at a lower rank, being unemployed following transition. And one of the biggest one, and we see this on a daily basis through our team and our service, is relationship breakdown following transition. Now, one of the most interesting things is that does not mean directly after transition. So this could mean, within that first year, or it could mean 20 years down the track. So we found that relationship breakdown is such a huge factor for veteran homelessness. So some of the strongest factors, as I was saying, relationship breakdown, but also high levels of psychological distress during service. We understand that for veterans, especially those on lower incomes, so that may be job seeker or veteran payment, what that looks like from a housing perspective is that shared housing is just out of the question for them. And that may not be for the reason that you may think. A lot of veterans are very self-aware, of course, and they realize that their psychological distress has an impact on those they live with too. So therefore, not only would that shared accommodation options not be suitable for them, but they don't particularly want to explore those options because of their care for other people. And of course, unemployment following transition is a huge one. And that's where, there's many employment services out there specifically for veterans for exactly that reason. So the effects of homelessness. Now, the effects of homelessness are basically well documented, but I've included this in here because there may be some you don't think about. So we all think about things like poor nutrition and maybe substance abuse and mental health problems. But those things sometimes that don't really enter into our minds when thinking about homelessness are things like poor dental health, a higher risk of death, disability, and chronic illness than the general population. People experiencing homelessness have less access to services than the broader population. Now, this can be for a whole range of reasons, but basically it may be, but the basic reasons around that are financial hardship, lack of transportation, lack of identifying documents like Medicare cards and stuff like that, and difficulty maintaining appointments or treatment regimes. So, the physical safety of a person who is experiencing homelessness is under constant threat. And without somewhere to put your belongings or your identification documents, it can be extremely hard to hold on to them, to take what you need for appointments, and all of those kind of things too. And of course, the lack of a safe living environment. People experiencing homelessness are more vulnerable to crime and personal attacks. So there's also some stuff around rights to privacy, education, and work, because without an address, you can't actually get things like you can't put your address on a resume. You can't access a Centrelink payment without address. All of those kind of things too. Of course, with income and identification implications, to get driver's licenses, all that kind of stuff, you need an address. And so these are only a few of the effects of homelessness, but I thought some really important ones. So solutions. So the Ahuri report itself gave us some suggestions. So as I was discussing before, veterans are clearly reluctant to access mainstream support services. Therefore, mainstream support services are really encouraged within that report to undertake things like service promotion, targeting, and outreach. And especially that kind of stuff for their early intervention to be effective. So there are services out there that do that and do that really, really well. So, and the other suggestion from the Ahuri report basically said that veterans experiencing chronic homelessness, so that may be 9 months or more, require that ongoing wraparound support services with case management, including housing. So very few veteran-specific services offer the level of support required, and preventative services often don't reach those who are much at risk. So as you can see there, it's a whole of community response needed to address the issue of veteran homelessness. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Housing First framework, which is basically the framework that we work from. There are some issues and bits and pieces with that, but that's just due to the service system and the housing service system that we work with within Australia. But there are 5 principles of Housing First that we take into account when working with veterans within our team. One of those is immediate access to permanent housing and no housing readiness requirements. One of the biggest things in that is that this is possible, and we are constantly advocating for more housing, more affordable housing, all of those kind of things, so that can become a reality. One of the most important things is consumer choice and self-determination. So choice and control is something that we kind of take for granted in our lives. And that's so important when addressing homelessness and as a principle of housing first. So the third one is recovery orientation. So we basically believe recovery is possible for everybody with the right supports and services in there. And that recovery path is different for every individual that we come across. So therefore, we really pride ourselves on providing an individualized and client-driven service. One of the things we find in housing veterans who experience homelessness or are at risk thereof is one of the biggest things that we come across is that the last principle, and that's social and community integration. So as a service, we, as I'll explain later, we work with RSL Queensland to provide both temporary and case management towards long-term accommodation for veterans experiencing homelessness. Now, once they're housed, and we try and do that within their communities, within their location of choice and support structure, social and community integration is huge because basically you can put 4 walls and a roof around someone and then they're like, what now? So we've worked really, really hard to make some connections with a whole bunch of different organizations out there to support those who either find themselves in a new community or find they're just so socially isolated because of whatever the reason may be. So the Veteran Homelessness Program, how we came to be. So in April 2016, RSL Queensland commissioned a report into veteran homelessness. This report was done by Himalaya Consulting, and there were a number of recommendations to come from that report. The figure or the number of homeless veterans was pretty much unknown. The report said, there may be somewhere between 300 and 3,000. We're just not sure. And so it really brought to light that this issue of veteran homelessness needed attention, not only of RSL Queensland and specialist homelessness services like us at the Salvation Army, but researchers also. So that report suggested a few recommendations. One of them being an RSL-enabled model of support in conjunction with a principal SHS provider, and RSL Queensland should enter into a statewide strategic service agreement with us at the Salvos and one other primary care provider. So after that report came out, what now? So basically, these findings prompted RSL Queensland to develop a partnership with a specialist homelessness service. And the aim was to address the need that was evident with a view that veteran homelessness is a complex issue that needs collaboration of all those involved. So now I'll talk a little bit about the partnership. So out of these findings, the veteran support team was conceived and began operations in July 2017. So that's where we came from in the partnership between RSL Queensland and the Salvation Army. So basically, we've worked from the ground up to develop a specialised support program for Queensland that works with veterans and their families to develop those skills to overcome the barriers to secure and maintain safe, stable, and independent housing. We basically provide a flexible and responsive support for veterans and their family members experiencing or at risk of homelessness. So I'd just like to mention that the partnership is the key here. The Veteran Homelessness Program and the work of the team at the Salvation Army is fully funded by RSL Queensland. The majority of referrals we receive come from veterans presenting or inquiring through the various platforms for access provided by RSL Queensland. So that can either be in person at the local sub-branch or at the district office, via phone, or there's an online component to that too, where if they jump on the RSL Queensland website, they can fill out an online form. That being said, we definitely do receive referrals from various other pathways, being Open Arms, DVA, through the Salvation Army itself. And the relationship between the Salvation Army caseworkers and the RSL Queensland Wellbeing Advocates is really key in achieving the housing goals of the veteran. So this is us, the Veteran Support Team. So this is a little slide about our mission, and our mission is basically to end veteran homelessness. This commitment is echoed by the Salvation Army's founders, William and Catherine Booth, to live, love and fight alongside those who are marginalised, suffering and excluded, and seeing the image of Christ in those who we serve and all that we do. So that's a big statement, and I'm very aware of that. And so how do we know how can it be done? And the answer is yes, it can be done. It's through something called functional zero homelessness. Now, that basically is a well-researched and proven way of tackling homelessness. That means that any instance of homelessness is rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. So this has been achieved in many communities across the world, in places like the USA, the UK, and Canada, especially with a focus on veterans who are experiencing homelessness. As a team, collaboration with other organisations is massive for us because we understand working towards our mission. It's a whole of community response with many organisations working together to achieve the same goal. So how do we contribute? Well, as a team, we walk alongside veterans to search for housing, secure that housing, and maintain their chosen housing. So, of course, as any of you who've worked in a housing space before or who've accessed housing, which is the majority of us, these things are based mainly on income and access to support networks. So we have conversations with veterans from the very first point of contact, the whole way through their time in the program, about all the options that are available to them. With which, as I said before, they're able to have choice and control over aspects of their lives, such as location, type of housing, and maintaining or building those support networks that suit their needs. So what's the day-to-day, the practicalities? So all veterans who reach out for support are contacted by an RSL wellbeing advocate to perform an intake and assessment. Any immediate needs are addressed by the wellbeing advocate, including, if needed, temporary accommodation, and then the veteran is referred, if appropriate, to us at the Veteran Support Team. We make contact with the veteran in 24 to 48 hours of the referral being received, and then until housing is secured, intensive housing-based case management services are provided to the veteran. Now, those case management services can take a whole variety of forms. And as I was saying before, it's very much an individualized process. So, of course, being in funded short-term temporary accommodation, it can get pretty intensive for people. So we set that up right from the very first contact. And we are always a big fan of priming people's brains for what's ahead. So we talk to them about things like the current state of the rental market, the general current state of the housing market, and what to expect within their time in the program. So the factors that we usually take into account are income, proximity to services, so that may be medical, psychological, all of those kind of things, and community, and any other factors that will lead to secure and sustainable housing outcomes for the veteran. We work with a variety of other service providers, including the wonderful guys at Open Arms. Also, we link people in with claims advocates, because obviously increased income means increased housing options, DVA rehab providers, health professionals, and basically anyone else who is involved in the veteran's life. So the main paths to housing that we explore are, of course, social housing, which some people would know as Housing Commission or Department of Housing, community housing, which is subsidised housing that's owned by private organisations, and of course, just your average private rentals that are through real estates or private people. So, since the inception of the program in July 2017, we've now surpassed assisting 460 individual veterans and their families. And that's only growing, of course. Since 2019, we've collected and collated a number of self-reported stats, basically to give us a better picture of those who we serve. We consistently achieve between about 75 and 85% of veterans who we walk alongside housed, with around 75 to 80% of those in leased tenancies. We currently support, it says they're over 60, currently it's 63 veterans and their families across the state, and we cover the entire state of Queensland. So the team is based in and around the Brisbane kind of Gold Coast area. So most of our work is done remotely, and linking in with other services on the ground to provide this housing-based case management. And so this is introducing the team. So myself, Johnathon, Dyer, Gillian, Vanessa, Bethany, Wesley, Peggy, and Liam, the best team anyone could ask for. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, John. That was fantastic. And of course, we've saved questions till the next session. Very fascinating. I'm looking forward to the next session to ask some further questions. Okay, next we have Nick Warren and Rachael Vincent from the Defence and Veterans Legal Service. So welcome. Look forward to listening to your side of the story as well. So thank you so much. Over to you, Rachael, if you want to start off. I'm guessing, is that right? Who's starting to talk?
I might just start off with.
All right, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to your community. I'm Nicholas Warren. I'm the Community Engagement Officer at the Defence and Veterans Legal Service. And I'd just like to introduce our Senior Solicitor, Rachael, who comes to us with immediate past experience assisting people with the Disability Royal Commission. And I'll now just pass over to you, Rachael. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Now, just checking that the slides are up and running. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Nick. So, no need, I imagine, to explain how this Royal Commission came about, but here are some key dates here that may be of interest to everybody. There are two ways that you can engage with the Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide. You can make a voluntary written submission, and you can choose how the Commission uses it in terms of how public that submission is. And those close on October the 14th. The other main way is a one-on-one chat with one of the commissioners, and that is called a private session. And registrations for those one-on-one chats also close on October 14th. Now, while registrations close on that day, the Commission have indicated that they're planning on continuing those until the end of the year, until the end of December. Now, the other way to engage is a public hearing. Not everybody who wants to appear at a public hearing has the opportunity to. And the next hearing block is on March 7 to March 18, and it's in Sydney. So I really encourage anybody who's interested in those hearings to come along if you like. It's completely free and open to the public. We also have a stand there. So if you're interested and you'd like to chat to us at the hearing, we're there and available. And it's also a good way to really listen in and hear some stories and find out about the work of the Commission. Those hearings are live streamed as well, and they're on the Commission's website. Now, a Royal Commission is Australia's highest level of public inquiry, and they're only called on matters of public importance. They've got quite significant powers to call witnesses, to get evidence and documents, and their role is to issue a report with recommendations to the government about change and how to improve and lessen the rates of defence and veteran suicide. So their interim report will come out in August of this year, with the final report in June of next year. Now, the Commission has really wide terms of reference. So what they're investigating is pretty wide, and it's anything that increases the risk of suicidal ideation or mental health is of relevance. And so if you have any questions about the terms of reference or what the Commission is investigating, we're happy to chat through those as well and to talk through any concerns or questions about that. The Commission really wants to hear directly from people who have lived experience. Their role is to come up with recommendations about change, and hearing directly from those with lived experience means they have an understanding of what is actually happening and what the experiences are. Submissions don't have to be about a life that's lost to suicide. It can be about risk factors and how mental health is treated in defence recruitment, training, culture, post-defence, really wide.
I found this on the web.
Now, our service is called Davels. We are available to anyone who wants to engage with the Commission. So to defence members, veterans, family members and their friends, anybody. We're completely free. We receive our funding through the Commonwealth Attorney General's Department. So we're at no cost if you want to engage. There's not a limit about the number of appointments either. we can talk to you once or 10 times. It's all a matter of what works for you and what kind of a service you're needing. We're completely independent. So we're independent of the Royal Commission, the ADF, DVA. We're completely independent. We really strive to provide a trauma-informed service and work with people so that they don't have to tell their story again and again, and work with them to get their story down in a trauma-informed way. We give our legal advice, information and referrals in a way that suits you. So we can talk on the phone, email, video conference, Zoom or Teams, in person, letter, really flexible, and it's designed to be in a way that suits you and in a way that you want us to engage with you. Now, a large part of the work that we do as well is referrals, and so we can give non-legal referrals to counselling and other supports, as well as legal referrals for other legal issues that may not fit within the Royal Commission or other legal issues that a client might be experiencing. We can help with submissions, the drafting of them, or with private sessions, registering, getting your notes together, your thoughts together, and appearing with you as a support. So we're here to chat at any stage of the journey and to support you to tell your story to the Commission and to share your experiences in a way that works for you. We are Australia-wide with one entry point, and that's our info line on 1800 33 1800. We've got amazing staff at our info line, and they can talk to you, send you resources, information. They can also make an appointment with a lawyer in that client's state or territory, or alternatively another state or territory if that's a preference. There's then a pre-arranged time that the lawyer will contact the client to discuss any legal issues and other supports needed. This is completely obligation free. It doesn't mean that you're then obligated to engage with the Commission or to share your experiences. That initial legal chat is more about options and hopefully us addressing any concerns that a client may have. Some people we might talk to once and others many times, and that's completely fine. It's all a matter of how we can support you to make a submission or share your experiences with the Commission in a private session. Some of the legal issues that we're seeing, really wide issues. There is concerns about naming the name of a person or an organisation in a submission or at a private session, and we can talk to you about the protections that are there that the Royal Commission has and ways that you can ensure that you're sharing your experiences in a safe way and in a way that works for you, dependent upon individual circumstances and experiences. Issues to do with employment and employment contracts and obligations, that's another one that we can discuss with you and work through. Confidentiality provisions, maybe non-disclosure agreements that have been signed or confidentiality agreements that have been signed. We can work through all of those issues. Protected or security information, So information that's subject to security classifications. We can talk to you about how you can use that information and how you can engage with us and the Commission if what you want to share is that information. We can talk to you about how to keep a submission private or privacy options. When you make a submission, you can let the Royal Commission know how public you want it to be. You can ask for it to be public with your name, public in an anonymous way without your name, so that anybody reading it wouldn't know it's you, or you can ask for it to be kept restricted. With private sessions, anything you say or send in remains confidential for 99 years after the Royal Commission. So we can talk to you about all of your options there, and you can decide which option is appropriate for you. We can talk about concerns about retribution. So people may have concerns that if they share experiences, they may get payback or retribution from work, from certain individuals or organisations. We can talk about Royal Commission protections and how you can address some of those concerns. We've had a large number of clients today seeking assistance with freedom of information, obtaining documents, using some of the documents that they've already obtained. So we can work through all of that. The most important thing with a Royal Commission is that they're most interested in hearing experiences, lived experiences, because those are the kinds of experiences that inform their work and their recommendations and their reports. So no experience is too small. When it comes to a submission, it can be a paragraph, 1 page, 10 pages. It does not have to be anything lengthy or anything legalistic or complex. The idea is just you sharing experiences that contribute to the really important work of this commission. There are some other options for making a submission that the Royal Commission are opening up soon. So instead of just making a submission in writing, you'll be able to make an oral submission, so record yourself and send that in. So there's some flexibility there as well that we can talk through and work through with people. So there's quite a lot of issues there. And what we can also do is, in the course of assisting a client, other legal issues that aren't on this list or that may be completely separate to the Royal Commission may arise. And we would work with you, clients, to make warm referrals to lawyers who work in those areas or to other non-legal supports if that's what's needed. Over to you, Nick. Oh, you're actually on mute, Nick.
Always happens. Thank you, Rachel. I'm conscious of the time. We have a break coming up in 2 minutes, so I'll just restrict my comments to a couple of points. The easiest way to contact us is just to use the info line. And what you can expect in that phone call is just a very brief phone call to assess what needs you have and how you would prefer us to talk with you. You can remain anonymous if you like, but that will restrict us just to giving you some basic information. To talk to a lawyer, all we need is a first name and some contact details. We have a website where you can download free resources. We have fact sheets and frequently asked questions information on many of the topics that Rachael has just talked about. It's at defenceveteranslegalservice.org.au, or you can email our Queensland team on just davils@legalaid.qld.gov.au. The other point I'd like to make is about that. I'd just like to stress what Rachael said. Our service is freely available to everybody and doesn't commit you to any action. It's about empowering you with information and advice to take control of your own engagement with the Commission. It's really important that the Commission hears from as broad a range of people as possible. So far, we've mainly been hearing from people from within ADF, but I would really encourage those members of families and veterans communities who've got some insights and recommendations to make to also step forward and to make their submission. The other part of our work is we're very keen to partner with as many of the veterans organisations, their ex-service organisations and veteran support organisations in the work that they're doing. We know we're not the only people in this field. Lots of the community have worked on these issues for years, and we're looking to support and to work in partnership with those organisations. In particular, we can provide all sorts of community education sessions, either in person or virtually like this, and we have a number coming up around the state and we'll be doing it around the country as the Commission moves all of its hearings around the country. As Rachael said, the next hearings are in Sydney, followed by Canberra, and then we're not quite sure yet of the Commission's schedule, but we are clear that they will be going to everywhere that's got a significant military presence, so places like Wagga and Townsville, etc., as well as the capital cities. So we would definitely encourage you to ring us up, give us a try, see what service we can get to give you. And the way that you can contact directly with Rachael's team, if you're a resident of New South Wales, also includes the email that you have there, which is just davils@legalaidnewsouthwales.gov.au. We'd be very keen to hear from anybody who would like a session in your community. And as I say, we can be very flexible in how we deliver. I'd like to thank Louise, Jackie and your team for this opportunity and look forward to your questions after our short break. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Rachael. Very interesting. Again, questions in the next session. I look forward to it. See you there. Thank you.